Good morning. Bezat Hashem, today we're going to be continuing our series on the Kabbalah of breath and meditation and learn how it's possible for us to transform our lives, take charge, master our emotions by changing the way we breathe, and at the same time by changing the way we think and our focus. We explained last time that one of the great problems of our generation is that we live in a world of distractions. There is an overload of information, and as a result, we are not able to benefit, to take advantage, and to live in the moment. We're consistently being solicited, and we don't take time for the most important person in our lives, which is us. Just like they say to us when we are on the plane, in case of depressurization, make sure to place the mask on yourself before you place it on your child. Because if you don't do that, you won't be there to place it on your child. It's time for us to refresh ourselves, to create some type of spa in time, a spa for the mind, a spa for the soul, disconnect from outer things and reconnect to our depth. Today we're going to be teaching the Kabbalistic aspect of breath, and at the same time we'll be learning about practical applications on how to breathe. And I'll be sharing my personal experiences with you. There is a book called Minchat Yehuda, which I discovered recently, which has incredible insights based on Kabbalah when it comes to the whole theme of breath, breathing. So I'm going to be sharing with you a few of the thoughts of this great rabbi, the Baal Minchat Yehuda. The Baal Minchat Yehuda teaches us that at the beginning of the creation of the world, God saw the needs of every single creature, physical needs, spiritual needs, the needs of having children, the needs of having sustenance, and God made that the element that is going to be a central element to the life of man is going to be air. What happens is that whenever we want to look at the root of things, whenever we want to transform things, we need to look at their root. The root of everything is air, if you think about it. The Tzemach Tzedek explains that there are, as we know from Maimonides, 4 elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Nevertheless, each one of them has a different position. We have fire, which is higher than air, air, which is lighter than water, and water, which is above earth. Nevertheless, we find that fire cannot exist if there is no air. And water, when it's contained in a vessel, if there is no air, it will not escape the vessel. It's once you give it some air that it's able to escape the vessel. So air, it says by the Tzemach Tzedek explains, is the medium between fire and water. Water is cold, fire is hot, water spreads, fire goes up. We have inside our body the 4 elements. The element of fire is in the heart, and the element of water is in the brain. And our sages teach us in the Zohar, in the Tikkunei Zohar, that if it wasn't for the 5 flaps of the lungs which are surrounding the heart, 2 on the left where the heart is and 3 on the right, we would actually dry out completely and not be able to live for one moment from the heat of the heart, because it's so strong. And therefore, just like a computer needs some type of airing system, so too we need some type of airing system that's going to calm things down. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains that the element of fire is Gevurah, the aspect of severity, because it goes up, therefore it's on the left side. The aspect of water is Hesed, kindness, which is going down, and it's on the right side. The element of air is exactly in the middle. Now, in general, when we speak about the middle, we understand that this is the right path to take, not to be at one extreme or the other. You don't want to be completely fully in your mind and disconnected from your emotions and disconnected emotionally from people. And at the same time, you don't want to be subjugated to the fire of the emotions and be consistently triggered by the world. Nevertheless, the element of fire which is in the heart and the element of water which is in the brain is part of who we are. What we need to do is to create that balance between both elements, where the heart operates in accordance to what the brain orders it to operate, which is a concept in Kabbalah and Chassidut which is called Moach Shalit al Halev Betoldato. The brain naturally dominates the heart because the brain is higher than the heart, not like an animal where there's a possibility, since the animal is walking on 4, therefore there's a possibility where most of the day, like a cow, for example, its head is lower than its heart. So, this concept of Moach Shalit al Halev, I'm going to give you an extreme example of it. At the time of the Alter Rebbe Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad Hasidism, there was a Chassid, a follower of Admor HaZaken, a student of his, by the name of Rav Moshe Meisels. Rav Moshe Meisels knew perfect French. And therefore, since Admor HaZaken, the Alter Rebbe, did not want that the French should win the war against the Russian, because he believed that it would secularize Judaism and be bad for the Jews, even though financially it might be more comfortable, but spiritually would not be good. Therefore, he sent one of his Hasidim by the name of Rav Moshe Meisels to be a spy for the Russian government, and he would see the plans of Napoleon each time they would go into an area. And that's why each time Napoleon arrived in an area trying to take the Russians by surprise, the Russian army was there. Interesting piece of history. So Rav Moshe Meisels is there with the generals of the army. They're preparing the plan of where to go, and he's translating from French to Russian, Russian to French, on how things will be done. And suddenly, little Napoleon comes in through the door. As soon as he sees Moshe Meisels, he screams out, "Spy!" Moshe Meisels did not budge and denied And as soon as he said that, Napoleon put his hand on Rabbi Moshe Meisel's heart. And it was beating at the same normal rhythm as the heart beats normally. Not like when a man fears for his life and the heart starts beating fast. At that moment, Napoleon apologized and said, "I'm sorry." This was the test to see if he was a spy or not. Now, Rabbi Moshe Meisel's recounts that it is what he learned in Hasidic philosophy, the concept of moach shalit al halev, that the heart should dominate the head should dominate the heart. This is the Aleph Bet, the basis of Hasidic philosophy, and it is what saved his life. So obviously, this is a very high level of self-mastery, to be able to have, in a time where your life is in danger, to have your heart completely going at a normal rate and not get excited by things. But this is not the nature of man. The nature of man is that as soon as we get excited emotionally, we had a bad phone call, we have a disappointment, then right away our heart starts beating either slower or faster. And this in turn affects our whole physiology, our whole sense of feeling, of self, and we lose it. We're not able to function properly. So obviously we need some type of tool in order to connect to our inner self and to be able not to be caught up in the emotions. Moach shalit al halev, the brain should dominate the heart. It's easier said than done. So, to go back to what we were saying before, whenever we want to know what is the beginning, whenever we want to know how to master a situation, we need to look at the beginning, the root of things. You see how a tree is growing, you look at its roots. You see what it's missing, etc. Well, what is the root of life? The root of life is breath. The first thing we're going to experience as soon as a child is born, as babies, is that first breath. And then it's going to be from that first breath to, God forbid, the last breath. But without breath, there is no way we can exist, even for one instant, for one moment. And breathing is free. So, the Minchat Yehuda, a great Kabbalist that received his Askama, the blessings of a great rabbi by the name of Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, which was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. He wrote a book by the name of Minchat Yehuda, and there he explains the following. And this is what we're going to be studying today, since it's a topic of the day. It's a series that we're doing on breath. And I was able to, Baruch Hashem blessed me this week to find a source in the Torah where everything is very clear. So at the beginning of creation, God gives sustenance and gives all the different needs that man has. And he does this through air. He does it by first giving life to man with being able, with the capacity of breathing. Now, what happens is that he says there are two types of airs. There are two types of airs. There is the air which is mehaye, the air which brings you life, and God forbid the air which brings you death. And he explains, today, in today's terminology, we could explain as oxygen, and we could explain it as carbon dioxide. If a person only has carbon dioxide, he is not able to live even for 1 minute. A person needs oxygen. But obviously, the level of oxygen that there is in air is not very much. There's more carbon dioxide in air than there is oxygen. And depending on where you are, there's going to be less or more. Air in the mountains, for example, is very tzach. Tzach in Hebrew means very refined. The air that you find in other places can be very heavy and thick. Today is a beautiful day in Florida, and the air is very fresh. So when I came home, I right away felt the difference in the density of the air. You want to catch your breath more. In Israel, our sages teach us, Avira de'eretz Yisrael mahkim. The air of Israel makes you smarter. And there are some holy cities which are higher, like Jerusalem and Tzfat, from which most of the Hachamim, most of the great sages come from. Because you get smarter when your quality of air is a better quality of air. Unfortunately, people do not know how to breathe. So even the little oxygen there is in air is not maximized in our system. And we get more of what's called avir hachonek than avir hamehaye, which means we get more air, which is the opposite of life, that makes you exhausted, so to say, than the air, the oxygen that brings you to life. So let's first explain a little the concept of air according to Kabbalah. The word air in Hebrew is avir. Avir in Hebrew are the letters Aleph, Vav, Yud, and Resh. If you look at the word avir, the Zohar Kadosh teaches us that it is actually the word or. Aleph, Vav, Resh, which means light. I'm sorry. The word or, which is light, and the letter Yud. Now, or Yud, if we understand, according to Kabbalah, the letter Yud represents the concept of Chokhmah, the concept of wisdom. A little on Chokhmah. Chokhmah is called Koachma, the power of what is. The power of surrendering is Chokhmah, which means that at a moment where I am awaiting the knowledge to reveal itself to me, right? At the moment that I'm in a state of silence and I make myself a vessel, I create a space for the knowledge to come to me. At the moment that I silence the voices which are in my mind and fill my mind with hope to await a revelation of wisdom, of understanding, that is the level of Keter, the crown, which is a level of the inside of what we call Chokhmah. Pnimiyut Abba, Pnimiyut Atik in Kabbalah, the depth of the level of Chokhmah, the power to surrender, the power to make a space, the power to annul oneself and completely erase oneself, the power to connect to what's called mazal. Mazal in Hebrew comes from the word nozelim min Lebanon, which means basically, as we explained last time, the dripping of the knowledge of above into the soul, which is inside the body. There's a knowledge which is being expressed, which is being revealed, but it's being revealed to the higher levels of the soul, and that these higher levels of the soul transmit it inside the body into the levels of the soul which are inside the body. But unfortunately, we're not sensitive enough to perceive it. That level of mazal, that level of knowledge, can only be accessed through the key of surrender. Now, the Shekhinah, God's presence, the peace of mind, cannot happen when the mind is all over the place. The same way that healing cannot fully happen when a person is agitated, and that's why a lot of people are put on different medications and morphine, etc., in order to calm them, in order to be able to bring about the refuah, the concept of healing. Well, the same thing. The presence of God is only going to be able to dwell in a place of calm, in a place which is peaceful. And that's why our sages teach us, Lo bera'ash Hashem. God is not where there is noise. At the same time, God is not in a place of anger or ego. So the natural inclination of man is that thoughts are never stopping. If you're able, to speak or stop speaking, you're not able to stop your mind from thinking. And therefore the mind can be a very noisy place. I always say that the main distraction of a person is not his cell phone. It's what goes on in his mind. And if a person is able to calm the mind and reconnect to that place which is referred to as the crown, the keter, the place of shtika, of silence, at that moment he actually is creating a perfect connection with Hashem and with his inner self, with his soul. And he is at that moment not caught up in the animalistic self, which is on the left side of the heart, but rather is able to calm down the heart. So this is the level of Chokhmah. The external level of Chokhmah, it says in Kabbalah, is the concept of Avir. Avir, as we said before, or the light of Yud. Yud, which is Chokhmah, which is wisdom. But so by the way, Yud, Chokhmah is humility at the same time. So by breathing, we actually are able to connect to that level, which is Chokhmah. And when we learn to breathe properly, we are able to cool down the heart. We are able, as a result, since Liba Palig Lechol Shaifin, the Zohar Kadosh says that the heart distributes to all the body limbs, all the limbs of the body. Therefore, if we're able to regulate the heart through breath, at that moment we will be able to have a much calmer body, and we'll be able to be much more oxygenated, and at the same time our limbs will be able to do their function much better. A very quick information: when we breathe and we bring oxygen to our bloodstream, so the cells carry a little backpack of oxygen. Now what happens is that when the flow is not enough, then you have two little cells that stick together carrying the same backpack of oxygen in order to live. So instead of having a blood where each cell has its own backpack of oxygen, you have many cells which are sharing the same backpack of oxygen. So suddenly, instead of the flow of the blood being the one like a river, it becomes one like milk or honey, but not in a positive sense, but rather in a gluey sense, where it's very thick and things go much slower, and therefore the functionality of the different limbs is not to its optimum. Today, I'm going to share with you an exercise because I know that everybody is eager to have something practical to go out of this lesson, and not only some Kabbalistic concepts of what air is and breathing is, but we want to know exactly how to do it. So there is a meditation that's associated to breath. First of all, I want to tell you that out there in the non-Jewish world, things which are associated with breathing, mantras, etc., are very often and most times associated to avodah zarah, to idol worship. Because you might start on a meditation app or an app that's going to teach you to breathe and meditate with things which are pretty simple, but eventually, once you go up and up, they start using different mantras and Buddhist things, etc., which is the opposite of Judaism. And that's one of the purposes of this class and this series, is actually to do things the kosher way, and do it the Jewish way, and hopefully elevate ourselves to our true root and our true nature. Lehavdil. So, first and foremost, the whole concept, I'm not going to talk about meditation now, the whole concept of breath, breathing, is already expressed by Rabbi Avraham Abulafia, which was a great Kabbalist, and many Kabbalists. When we talk about the concept of Yehudim, Yehudim means to be able to unite and bring a fusion of two different expressions of Hashem through His names as one. Or when we want to unite with Hashem through a mitzvah. So we need to prepare the terrain. And actually it's a Mishnah. The Hasidim, the pious people in the olden times, when they would pray for 3 hours. 1 hour was a concept which is called shohin. Shohin means that actually putting yourself in a state where you are a recipient, where you're a vessel to receive and to connect to Hashem. To connect to Hashem and to receive the light of Hashem, you need to be able to be in a peaceful mode. Imagine that you're going to a very important meeting and you're just troubled because something just happened with your child, or you got a call from the school, or God forbid, or somebody, some stressful situation happened. Obviously, you would not be able to be completely there at the meeting. People would see, look, you came to have a meeting, this is an important meeting, or you came to waste our time. We see you're not present. On the other hand, when a person is fully present and fully invested, and he lives in the moment, he, at that moment, gives a different type of impression, because this is what we call yichud. You're making a unity, you're making a fusion between the soul and the body, the mind and the heart. And when all these elements are united together, you have what's called the concept of presence. You are present. And when you're present, the impression that you make is a completely different impression, because you are you. You are who you need to be at that moment. And it's not because you want to go have a good impression on somebody else. It's just because now this is what you're doing. You are a master of your moment. So, there is a certain way of breathing which is very important. There's a breath that is from the mouth, and a breath which is from the nose. I will tell you that for many, many years, I taught the breath which is from the mouth is the good breath. But really, the mouth, if you look at the functions of the mouth, that's not really one of the functions of the mouth. It's there to speak or to be quiet. The nose, on the other hand, has 32 different functions. And the nose, when you breathe through the nose, besides the fact that you're not going to have a dry tongue and a dry mouth and bring all this bacteria inside your body, when you breathe through your nose, you actually filter the air through your nose, and you connect to a much deeper place than with the mouth. When you breathe through your nose, you're able to fill your diaphragm with air. With breathing through the mouth, you're not able to do that. Most of us only use half or 2/3 of our lungs if we're lucky. So there's a lot of carbon dioxide that needs to be taken out of the body, and there's a lot of oxygen that needs to be brought in. Now, oxygen, air in Hebrew, as we said before, is Or Yud, right? Or Yud, which is the light of Chokhmah. So really, air is energy. And that's why when a person breathes properly, when they sleep properly and they breathe properly throughout the night, they have more energy. Unfortunately, for many people, we don't have more energy. We have more weakness after sleeping. I personally suffered of some type of sleep apnea and snoring for many, many, many years. And most recently, where I started exercising my breathing through the nose, I want to tell you that it almost 90% went away without doing anything else but just training myself to breathe through the nose. Breathing through the nose, which is the hotam, is a natural thing, because the Torah itself says, "Vayipach be'apav nishmat chaim." Where did God give life through? Where did He blow a breath of life? It doesn't say through the mouth, it says through the nostrils of man. And therefore, the proper way to connect to one's soul, to one's inside, at the beginning, the first stage is to breathe through the nose. And you'll see many, many teachings on how closing your mouth can actually help you live a better life, a life which is more calmer life. So we're going to start with the following breath. I'm going to ask you, and by the way, if you want to stay away from Avodah Zarah, from idol worship or things which are not Jewish, I will tell you that you don't have to be in any type of position when you breathe. You don't have to put your hands in a certain way. You don't have to sit in a certain way. You don't have to take off your shoes. You don't have to do anything which is out of the ordinary. You could just be the way you are, where you are, and the way you are comfortable. And by doing so, you know that you're staying away from Avodah Zarah, and the benefits are the same. So, let's start. I know that everybody's eager to start. And so I'm going to ask you to start breathing, inhaling through the nose, and maybe just as the start to put your hands on your stomach, on the lower part of your stomach. And when you fill your lungs with breath, try to feel how your stomach is expanding, not only in the front of the stomach, but even on the side of the stomach. Let's try that together. And now when you exhale, feel how the stomach is coming in. So inhale through the nose, keep your mouth closed. Inhale through the nose to the maximum capacity possible. Hold it for 1 or 2 seconds to feel what it feels like to have a full-blown lungs and stomach. And afterwards, exhale through the nose by pulling your stomach in. Very good. Do this a few times. While you do this, I want you to start focusing on how you feel the breath coming into your brain and coming into your system, and how you feel, continue while I'm talking, and how you feel your brain, how you feel the difference of temperature between the air that comes in and the air that goes out. This exercise, I've been doing it, you can continue doing the exercise. I've been doing it now for the last 2 weeks, almost every morning except Shabbat. Been going to the beach across the street from where I live and doing studying, and after my studies I take the time for 3 minutes to just breathe and try to focus only on your breath. It has done wonders for me, and most recently I had an incident where 3 different things happened with people. Either I got a comment that wasn't so nice, or I did something which surprised me, that came more from my ego, and I was a little taken aback like this, that I should react in a certain way to somebody that I appreciate. And I was definitely bothered by it. I was really bothered by it. And another event happened, and all these 3 things put me in some type of emotional turmoil. So when I went to the ocean, or I went to pray, I made a conscious effort to connect to my breath, because there are 2 types of breathing. There's the conscious breathing, and there is the natural breathing, the way we all breathe, which is not really deep. So I was able to connect to my breathing, and it was able to change my whole emotional situation to one where I was much more in control. In a normal circumstance, I would be completely depressed, down. I would turn most probably to sweets or coffee or other types of things just to calm me down and to change my mind. I want to tell you that I personally experienced it, and it's incredible. It's healing, it's soothing, and it really gets you to be in a state of peace. You calm down the fires, and you are able to see things with a much better perspective. So let's try that again. Through the nose, fill that diaphragm with air, hold it, and then exhale again through the nose. The nose is, the breathing from the nose is something which is very powerful, even when it comes to the voice, because You're no longer stuck in your throat, which is called Metzar Hagaron, which is the place which is very tight and gets you stuck where your emotions take you. But rather, you're able to go above your emotions. You're able to see things differently. But hopefully, I'll be able to invite a guest speaker, which I just saw from Italy, my voice teacher, Miriam Arman, which I would like to welcome here after I haven't seen her in years. So, which taught me about breathing and the voice. And I'm sure that she has some insight that she'll be able to share with us maybe next week. Bezrat Hashem. So, the exercise I'd like to leave you with for this week is to take 3 minutes every morning, if you can, every night as well, doing the simple breathing exercises of just trying to train and connect to the breath through the nose, closing your mouth completely, and consciously breathing in, holding your breath for a few seconds, and then exhaling through your nose. Try this, do it every day, and try to be conscious throughout the day that you're breathing through your nose and not through your mouth. You will see a change in your quality of sleep. Do it before going to sleep. While I lie on my pillow, I do it as well, and I think of whatever I'm thinking, and it's tremendous. The quality of your sleep will increase tremendously. Let's start with that, and of course, when you have a situation and a difficulty that you want to overcome with whatever life has to offer us, do that exercise and just focus. Disconnect and just focus to your breath. And if you find that your mind is wandering, don't worry, you're human. Let it always come back to the breath. Let it always come back to the breath. So, what can I wish you? A week filled with healthy breathing, with a good air, an Or Yud. The light of Hashem should fill us, fill our minds, and bring us to the true level of fusion with our missions, our souls, our potential. God bless you all.